Hey guys, it's Mace1370, and today we're going to talk about the hero that everyone is loving to hate, Landy. I got a little lucky on the banner this time. I pulled my first copy within 4 or 5 summons, pretty incredible. And then about 100 summons later, I got the first copy of her artifact. And at that point, I was so close to the pity, I just decided to finish it off so that I could get an imprint. And I got even luckier and pulled a second copy of the artifact along the way. So 2 heroes, 2 artifacts, and 1 pity. I'll take it. Not that bad. If you're not familiar with Landy, or if you need a refresher on her abilities, essentially she is an AoE damage dealer, and she gets a lot of benefits when the enemy has buffs. Benefits like CR boosting and increased damage. So her S3 is an AoE ability, and it gives her a speed buff for 2 turns, and if she has full fighting spirit, it's kind of her unique resource. It's all consumed, and it increases her damage dealt, and CR pushes her team by 15%. And also, that ability cannot trigger a counterattack. Her passive ability gives her a stacking attack boost, which is permanent. It stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. And then at the start of the turn, she also gains 10 fighting spirit. She starts the battle with 50 fighting spirit, and when she gets to max, which I believe is 100, it resets the cooldown on her S3. And then let's see, I think, was there anything else in here? Oh yeah, she gets 10 fighting spirit for each buff granted to an enemy at the start of the turn. So the fighting spirit, I believe, is not increased by dual attack type things, but note that it says increases the caster's attack by 7% after attacking. So things like Rass's S2 or Lilius's S1 pulling her in will give her that stacking attack buff, but I don't think it gives her the fighting spirit. And here, this is her S1, essentially just gives her a little CR boost on top of the damage that it does, and she gets an even bigger CR boost when the enemy's buffed. So, because Landy's kit revolves around her getting benefits from the enemy team having buffs, I decided to build her at a slightly slower speed because I want all of the enemy buffers to go first and get the buffs up. Additionally, Landy has no survivability stuff in her kit. None of these abilities give her any sort of evasion or protection or anything like that. So I wanted to build her tanky because her damage ramps up. She's not going to be a hero that one-shots everybody, on the first turn. She needs to take multiple turns, and in my mind the only way to help her survive and do that is to build her tanky. So I gave her, a fair amount of health and defense, and then the rest I just try to put into damage. She doesn't need effectiveness. I'm not saying this is the most optimal way to build her. This is just a way that I brainstormed and thought this could work. So again, I think the problem with Landy is that she is a slow to ramp up hero that doesn't have any survivability. Additionally, another problem with Landy, and I'm sure you've heard this from other people as well, she gets benefits when the enemy team is buffed, like increased damage and stuff, but so many of those buffs are so crippling to damage dealers, I can't imagine that her, getting these benefits is going to outweigh them just not having buffs, right? So you think, oh, maybe Landy is an anti-buff unit. Well, strippers are anti-buff units, and I think they're probably just going to be better, but, new units take a while to figure out, so we'll see. Another potential way you could build her, I think, is maybe super fast with high damage, just to get her turn cycling even more. I think on a slower speed it could work, just because she has so much CR boosting, in her kit, that you can maybe overcome the fact that she has, low speed. I think pairing her with units like I mentioned, like Rass or Lilius, can be helpful to help her attack buff stack up quickly. And then in terms of when you will draft her, well, so in my mind, she's a vulnerable unit that needs many turns to, become maximally effective, and she doesn't really protect herself. So you're going to need to draft her probably with Knights, I would imagine, some sort of bruiser composition. And ideally, you're going to want to take her into enemy bruiser teams that don't have high damage themselves. So you're going to want to take her into long, drawn-out matches. And I think the ideal one would be a team that has, 3 support units and 1 DPS. So I'm sure we've all been in those scenarios when, the draft is over and the enemy team is 2 Knights, a healer, and a Lencia or something like that. I feel like Landy could excel in that type of scenario. So can Dark Corvus, so can Spectre Tenebria, so can a lot of other units. So maybe there's a different niche for Landy that's more unique. Also, since we're building her at slow speed, I forgot to mention, obviously, she needs to be on immunity. In terms of what artifact to use on her, I think the jury is also still out on this one. For now, I just have her artifact equipped. It gives her, some CR boosting, I believe down here, yeah, so after using an attack that targets all enemies, it gives her 10 CR, so whenever she uses her S3, it boosts her CR again. And then, you know, it's kind of like a mini Alexa basket for her. It gives her a chance for greater attack buff, so I'm hoping that my lack of offensive stats here can be mitigated by this artifact. Other things that you could consider, I mean, there's many good ranger artifacts. You know, I guess you could consider like otherworldly machinery that would boost her S3, I think. But, you know, I'm not entirely sure in terms of the damage if that would be the best one. Drink, I think, is really good on SSB, but she's, I don't think, going to be firing an AoE damage ability off frequently enough for Drink to be the best. Maybe just Portrait is the best. I think her artifact would be fine on her, though. Like, it seems to complement her kit pretty well. So, I think that's mostly my thoughts on her. I've arranged a practice match just to simulate ideal conditions for her, so we'll see how she does. Okay, first shout out and thank you to Decario for helping me arrange this practice match. I didn't want to tank a bunch of points testing her when I'm not even sure this is the build I want to go with. So I essentially told him to build a team that would make Landy shine. My Landy has no molas, so take this performance with a grain of salt, but this is essentially a team with a lot of buffs, an enemy team with a lot of buffs, and low damage. So hopefully my Landy will be able to survive, ramp up, and, you know, do more damage over time. I wanted to take Ras, but he picked him first, so instead I took Lilius. I took Lilius because her S1 can pull Landy in for dual attacks, as I mentioned, and that'll help her attack stack up more quickly.
It takes a lot of courage to challenge me.
So we can see that my Landy is behind all of the enemy buffers, so the speed tuning worked out effectively in this case. The enemy team has immunity, so I just go ahead and S1 with Lilius, again hoping to pull Landy in. It doesn't work. His Iseria on this team is probably the biggest threat because she's going to be able to put defense breakup on Landy, who is the most vulnerable unit on my team. So if I'm not careful here, Landy is basically just going to get deleted. I also have to be careful because if Landy dies and I bring her back with Ruel's S3, that's going to reset Haste S3 as well, and might just lead to her dying again. I've run into ML Haste quite a bit while, you know, playing the ladder recently, and he is surprisingly effective against Ruel in the right setups. If the enemy team has a lot of single target high damage dealers, you know, like Haste and Rylet together, they can just snipe off a unit fairly early into the match, and it's really awkward to res at that point because they have so much momentum, and then it'll reset Haste S3 and, you know, just keep up their healing and keep up their damage. So you can see here I get the first S3 off with Landy. The opponent has 2 buffs on each of them. Not super impressive damage, but she has no molas, and you know, she's built bruisery, so I'm hoping that this will ramp up a little bit more as the match goes by. I'm just going to continue focusing Iseria here with the S1, not necessarily because it's the most optimal play, but I wanted to pull Landy in and get her stacks going. And Landy was like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to sit here and not dual attack with you. So you can see Lilius is on Hillag Lance. I assume that since Landy is going to be focused, that'll help, you know, CR push Lilius and get more S1s in and potentially just, you know, speed up my entire process. Alright, so she got her artifact proc there. You can see the greater attack buff. I'm just going to soul burn the S2 here. So this is with greater attack buff, 3k and 266 crit damage, no molas. You can see 6 damage on Ras there. I think he's the Aureus holder, so, you know, it's like a little bit better. And the enemy team is, you know, being pressured here. Iseria is about to go down.
I'm sure fortune will be on our side today as well.
I suppose an advantage to Landy in this scenario rather than Dark Corvus is Dark Corvus could just be ignored if they don't have AoE damage, but Landy is more proactive, right? Like, she doesn't need to get hit to do her thing. So I suppose that she could be more effective than Dark Corvus in certain scenarios. But if all they have is single target, I guess Specteni would probably just be way better. I don't know, I'm trying to make it work.
This is getting old.
So you see ML Haste here, 23k, he goes for the kill. It doesn't get it. You know, the fact that she has 14k hit points I think is important. Most ML hastes are going to do about 10k, and then with an Aureus holder, she's going to be generally safe from an ML haste S3. But now Shu is up, and you know, if he keeps focusing, no, he decided to hit Ruel there instead. I was going to say Landy could be in trouble.
Requesting approval.
So we get another S3 going here. This time I think without greater attack buff. And that was about 4,500 on Ras, so you can see the difference that greater attack buff made. So I suppose with full Mola, she'd be hitting decently hard here, and I think you can just kind of get the pace of this match that within this amount of time span, she's already gotten off 3 skill 3s, which is not horrible, really. The gear I have her on right now is decently stat-weighted. You know, I'd say most of the pieces are around 50 to 55, maybe 50 to 60 points. Actually, some of them are 60 points. So she has a fair number of stats. It's not optimal, right? It's not perfect, so she could be better built.
Leave it to me.
Here I just decided to use the S3 on Landy to heal her up, since I didn't want her to die and then, you know, reset haste passive.
Don't worry.
And now I'm just focusing down Ras to make the others easier to deal with.
I'm sure Fortune will be on our side today as well.
You can see the bar underneath her health there is the fighting spirit. It's slowly ticking up.
Take this.
So I think that gives a fairly decent demonstration of, you know, what she's capable of. She was able to survive a few hits from ML Haste and from Shu. So I think that, you know, given the right setup, I think she can be viable. I'm hoping that we'll be able to find better comps for her. And that S3 animation really is rocking, so, you know, I couldn't blame anyone for building her. That was even more damage. It was like 7k, but I guess we're probably getting into Frenzy now, so. Alright, I'm just going to end the match here because at this point it's pretty much over. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And check back next time when I will have the winner announcement for our Leaf Pack giveaway. And as a last thing, if you have not entered that, just go ahead and check my videos. It's the video posted before this one. Entries are still open. Thanks for watching. Later.